Hi, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Trent Warehon. I'm going to be your presenter today. I'm the president of Dental Growth Strategies, and we'll be starting here in just a couple minutes. We'll let everybody hop on that's trying to get on, and I'll be back in just a couple of minutes to get started. Okay, because we got so much to cover today, I'm just going to go ahead and get started, and anybody who's popping on late can just join us then. So let me get my screen shared here, and let's do this. All right. So again, welcome everybody. What I want to do today is take you through a lot of the stuff that I've learned over the past 18 years in marketing dental offices, and try and give you as much information as I can. My goal today is really to teach you how to get more new patients every month. And if you want, make sure that those patients are higher value, and do all of this without getting bogged down in all the technical stuff or paying outrageously for advertising that never converts, because you can advertise, but if it's not converting, something's not right. So pretty important to make it convert. So who am I? Well, I've been marketing dental practices for over 18 years. I've helped practices of all sizes, from startup to over $13 million, to grow to the point where the owners decided to sell to multinational companies, you name it, ortho clinics or ortho and implants. And the one thing I want to, and you'll see throughout this webinar, that I really want to focus on strategy before tactics. And what I mean by that is I'll ask people, so what do you do for marketing in your clinic? And they'll tell me, oh, well, we do some Google ads and we do some Facebook ads and maybe direct mail or whatever it is. Those are tactics. But what I want to talk more about today is the strategy behind those tactics. Because if you get the strategy right, then you can use it in just about any medium and you'll get results. Because there are people listening, watching, reading in just about every medium you can think of. And if you get the message right, you will get results. I'm going to talk about both on and offline marketing, because I think both are very relevant today. It's going to be a little bit like drinking from a fire hose. And all I hope is that even with all the water that's getting sprayed at you, that you do get a bit to drink. So there's a few things that I hope you take away from this, and I'll point those things out too. I'll make sure that you know when I'm talking about something I think is super important. So the first thing I want to do is give you a bit of a crash course in ad history and why branding shouldn't be your strategy. Because I hear a lot of people, yeah, you know what, we've got to do some branding. Okay, yes, but there's a but there. So in the early days of advertising, this was like in the late 1800s, early 1900s, most companies competed on a local or regional basis. And that probably sounds familiar to you as a dentist, because you're competing on a local and regional basis. And that really forced advertisers to use their brains when they're crafting their ads. And so that meant smaller companies got really good at getting attention and building a case. And let's have a look at some of these. Sudden death, heart disease. You don't have to read this whole thing to look at it and go, oh my God, what's this? And especially back then when, people were dying from reasons that they didn't even know about, right? But so they used pictures. So you can see this lady is obviously dying, and things like sudden death to get people's attention. And then they built a case for that. And then they did ways for people to take, or very creative ways for people to take action as well. Here's one, very interesting. Bunion comfort. I only ask bunion sufferers to write me. Who do you think might respond to this? Well, if you don't have bunions, you probably wouldn't. But do you think this advertiser cares? Absolutely not. That's exactly who they're going after, is the bunion sufferer, right? And so you don't care if anybody else reads this ad. You don't care if it's even seen by them, right? You just want to go after the people who are your target audience. Here's one, teeth without plates. So, you know, this was a way that they used words and pictures. Very simple ad, but this was a very effective ad. Dr. C.A. Risk, I thought that was kind of interesting. How a mother's innocent mistake kept her child pale and tired for years. Any moms out there? Would you read this if you're concerned about your kid's health? Of course you would. Would you read all the details? Maybe not. Maybe you read the headline and maybe you'll read, oh, this free offer. That's interesting. Children's vitamins. I've been wondering about that. How do you take action? A very obvious way to do it down here, right? I hear all the time, and I'm not suggesting that we do ads like this. Please don't think that. But I hear all the time that people will say, oh, well, we might have a little bit too much copy in there. And you know what? That might be true if you're not interested in this topic. But if you are, you'll read as little or as much as you have time to absorb. And most moms who are interested in keeping their children healthy, especially back here at this time, would have read through this. So then World War II came along and everything changed. North Americans had more money, more free time. And the other thing that came along was the TV or the television, right? And there was not a lot in the beginning. 1945, it was first introduced. There were fewer than 7,000 sets and only 9 stations in 5 markets. So a whole lot different than it is today. You know, when we have hundreds of stations and thousands of markets, in fact, thousands of stations probably. But by 1952, there was TVs in 20 million households. Wouldn't you have liked to have had part of that? That was a crazy growth. And what it did is it developed what we call the era of the brand builders. The reason was because national companies had a new medium that they could reach the entire country. They could get an ad out on one of the networks and everybody in the country could see it. And because of limited supply, because there wasn't a whole lot of stations, the cost went up very quickly. And this forced commercials to shrink down from 2 minutes to 30 seconds. And what it did was it created a situation where all the advertisers had less time to build a case. So slogans became popular. See if any of you guys remember this. This will probably date some of you. Aren't you glad you used Dial? Or Ring Around the Collar, Whisk. Or Melts in Your Mouth, Not in Your Hands, M&Ms. And these were all things that they did because they just didn't have time to build a case for these products, right? And then logos became the most cost-effective way. In fact, McDonald's even abandoned their "You deserve a break today" slogan because it cost too much to say. And they just said, "Flash the golden arches." So, you know, it's interesting how the lack of ad space changed the way that people advertised. And so, you know, what's happened since then, national companies have made fortunes by advertising on the tube. They've been able to reach millions and millions of people on one medium. And it really has created a situation where everybody thinks that that's the way you do it. Institutional advertising was what all of the big companies were doing. And so that's what everybody thought, right? I mean, you know, if you're a small business, you think, oh, well, maybe I should do it like the big companies, like the big phone companies or a bank, right? Well, not necessarily. And so people started to emulate this. And so you see people trying to brand themselves all the time. The old Yellow Pages was really good for this. And I say the old Yellow Pages because most people don't use it much anymore. But you could thumb through the dental section of the Yellow Pages and all you would see is logos and names of dental offices. And really it was just telling people, here's who we are, come see us for no apparent reason, right? So these are some of the more recent stats for some of these companies. Pepsi spent over 1.7 billion. Procter & Gamble spends about 10 billion. McDonald's about 2 billion. Coca-Cola, 300,000 billboards, 20,000 walls with their logo painted on it, 5 million soda glasses, 4 million newspaper impressions. And that was all back in 1930. So you can see how much money they were spending back then. Now they probably spend over 4 billion. It's probably gone up from that now. So what this did is there were some symptoms of what we call brand builder emulation. It was focused completely on getting attention, right? So it was always very emotional and not selling on logic at all, and a very heavy reliance on design, pictures, and humor. We call it the ad agency formula of CNR, creativity and repetition. And creativity is basically just a bunch of 25-year-olds sitting around thinking stuff up. And repetition is getting the brand into your brain enough times that you remember it. And that's not cheap. I don't know if anybody here is a hockey fan. I love to watch hockey. Go Flames. Hopefully they get in the playoffs. But one of the things that I notice there is that some of the big phone companies, like here in Canada, TELUS is one of them, that they just pummel you with ads. Now, do the ads always sell phones? No, they sell cute little animals and specific colors, and they try and get that stuck in your brain so that anytime that you see a cute little animal or that color or that font for that matter, you remember it and you think, oh, TELUS. So the deficiencies in effectiveness are made up for with repetition. And this is just pummeling you with it over and over and over and over again. And again, that's great if your ad budget's huge, but you're probably not. And so what ends up happening is platitudes and generalities rule the roost. So dental clinics are not Fortune 500. You provide a professional service, not fast food or cars or soft drinks. And your marketing budgets are much smaller. Your needs are different. And you need to get the most out of every dollar you spend. So you need to utilize action-oriented advertising, something where you can measure the response. And you also need to lower the risk of trying. And I'm going to try and help you do that, because sometimes it's more like you're just throwing mud against the wall instead of actually knowing exactly what you should put out there beforehand. So what exactly is marketing? Well, here's my definition of it. Marketing is what happens before a person picks up the phone and calls you. Sales is what happens after that. And there's some exceptions to that too, because there is marketing you can do internally as well. And I'll touch on that in a bit. But the reason I say that is because before you do any marketing, doesn't matter if you're thinking of doing social media or whatever it is, don't do any marketing unless you're sure the front end staff know what they're doing. So put in some way of recording the calls and listening to them. You might be surprised at what you hear. A lot of people tell me, oh yeah, well, I know what they're saying. I've stood in the office and listened to the calls. Have you? Have you actually heard the other side of the calls? Because we do this all the time for clients. And when we play the calls back to the business owners or the office managers, they're coming back with things like, what the heck are they saying? Nobody told them to say that. Oh my God, how come they didn't get their name and phone number, or whatever it is. But please, before you do any marketing, please get your receptionist trained. It's something that we do all the time when we work with a client, is we just try and make sure that we understand what's happening when people are calling before you start spending money on advertising, because you can make the phone ring like crazy, but if they're not turning into patients, then what good does it do you? So here's what marketing is supposed to do. It's supposed to make your prospect feel like they would have to be an absolute fool not to do business with you, regardless of your price. And I know, in some markets, price is an issue because there are fee guides and stuff that people are following. But in others, you're just dealing with competitors who are chopping the price of new patient exams and cleanings and stuff like that just to get the business. And so your marketing is supposed to take that price out of there. And then it's supposed to lower the risk of them taking the next step so that they engage with you. So we like to break that into 3 parts. And the first one is having something good to say. And that's what you do that makes your patients the best, that's what you do that makes you the best choice for your patients. And what I was thinking of there is that if you don't think that you are the best choice for your patients, then that's the very first place to start. You need to make sure that you get your practice to the point where you think that. And that, I hear this all the time too. Well, I don't know if I should be advertising. Well, it's your responsibility, because if you think you're the best choice in your town or your city, then why wouldn't you tell people about it? Because they're going to get substandard dental care if they don't go to you. So now it's your obligation, right? So once you have something good to say, you need to say it well. And I'm going to talk a lot about this today. This is the strategy of how to communicate your message to the consumer. So this is what we call the results formula. And I'm going to give you that formula, and hopefully it's something that you can use for everything that you create. And then once you've learned how to say it well, then you need to say it often. And saying it often is the medium and the frequency. So this is where you say it and how often. So if it was, for example, if it was social media, it's either Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or wherever you put your content, and it's how often. If this was direct mail, it would be, is it a postcard and how often do you send it? So what if you don't have something good to say? Well, then you need to innovate. And how do you innovate? Well, I've got a little simple chart here, and I'm not going to go into this very much, but basically is you take any of these things, specialized facilities, or if you have special programs or products and packages, variety and selection, patient experience, et cetera, et cetera. And what is everybody doing? Whoops. What's everybody in your area doing? That is pretty much the thing that everybody does. How could you be unique? And then what would be a breakthrough? Okay, let me give you an example. Specialized facilities. Okay, so we were working with a client who was in an area that parking was really almost non-existent. And when you did find it, it was really expensive. So the industry standard was for, well, you know what, someone could just come down. Hopefully you find a parking spot, and when you do, you got to plug the meter or register for the parking app and spend $4 or $6 an hour, whatever it is. So that's the standard. What would be unique? Well, maybe you have somewhere that gives a discount for your patients to go park. Or maybe you build a place when you build your office, you build it with a parking lot so that you have free parking. What would be breakthrough? If you're in an area where if you're not building, maybe you make a deal with a parkade or somewhere that people park that you pay for their ticket, so they bring their ticket and you can cover it. So different things like that. Maybe it's your waiting room. Maybe the standard waiting room has some chairs and a TV. Unique might be to have a little coffee bar, and breakthrough might be to have 5 massage chairs and a video games room and an espresso bar with you can get snacks or whatever it is. So that's the way that I would think about how to innovate. And you can think that through, whatever works for your situation. So once you have something good to say, then you need to say it well. And it needs to speak, your marketing needs to speak to your patients from their point of view, not your point of view. And so the way that I'd like to think about it is when somebody is going to choose a new dentist, they go through a decision-making process, and we call it the decision-making spectrum, and it starts at A and goes right down to the end at X, Y, and Z, or Z if you're American. And so typically people will not pick up the phone and call until they're way down here at W. But what happens with all of these people? They're in the decision-making process. They're going, my last visit to the dentist wasn't excellent. So maybe next time I'll see if we can find a new dentist. And they pull out that file folder in their brain that is dentist, whatever that is, and they start to think about what they want to do. They might talk to friends and family, they might go on the internet and search around, but they're not ready to pick up the phone and call yet. And so what you need to do is you need to help facilitate that decision-making process. And if you can do that, you're giving them important and relevant information to bring them along this spectrum. Because here's what we know. If people could fix their own teeth, they would, but they can't. So they need to find somebody who is an expert, right? And how do they know if you're an expert? Most people don't even think about it that way. They think, oh yeah, dentists are pretty much all the same. So where's somebody that's, convenient and maybe has a couple of extra things, services that I might be able to use, or, oh, they look like they've got a really pretty office, right? Well, those aren't the reasons why you want people to choose you. You want people to choose you because you're the best choice. And so what you want to do is give them decision facilitating information so that they now know that you are the expert. And when they come down to this area here where they decide that they want to pick up the phone and call, you're the default. It's just automatic. They don't even think about anybody else, right? When everybody else in their advertising, hey, when you get down here to WXYZ, give us a call. Well, you're going to win most of the time. And here's what we know is about 1% to 2% of the entire market are ready to buy, and about 98% are information gathering. So my theory is the marketer who takes control over the largest percentage of the market wins. So why not take control over this? And here's the thing, the marketing that works for these people here also works for the people who are at the 1% to 2% they're ready to buy. Think about it this way. If you're thinking about buying a brand new Honda Civic, and you know that this coming weekend, I'm going to go down to the dealership and I'm going to make a deal. And you get an email that says 10 things you need to know before buying a Honda Civic. Do you think you'll take a look at it? Absolutely, because you want to have the information to help you make that decision, right? And maybe you might learn something in there that'll help you with the deal that you make with the dealer. So, and that also is something that would be relevant to people who are in the decision-making process back here, because they're just gathering information. And if they're considering a Honda Civic, they're going to grab that and say, oh yeah, these are the things I need to know. So what you need to do is you need to take control over your patient leads with what we call the results formula. And that starts with interrupt, and then engage, and then educate, and then offer. And if you do those 4 things, you're going to get results. Let's break that down a little bit. So what about the interrupt and engage? Well, we operate our lives pretty much in what we call alpha mode. And what's that? Well, there's so much that we do that's pretty much on autopilot, that because if we didn't, our brains would overload and we wouldn't be able to do anything. So think about this. Has anybody ever driven to the office and you get there and you go, oh my God, I don't remember the last 10 minutes. That's your brain just doing it on autopilot because you don't have to think. Now think back to the first time you ever drove a car. You were paying attention to everything you did, where your hands were, how your feet were on the brakes and the gas, and everything that you were doing. It was almost sensory overload. So that's why our minds do that. But it also affects how we deal with marketing. So alpha mode in marketing makes us pretty much literally oblivious to all advertising messages. And as technology advances and as there are more things that feed us messages, it's even worse, because our brains automatically try and filter all of that stuff out. And so ads aren't even given any opportunity because they're not noticed. So there's no opportunity to sell your product or your service because nobody even sees it. Even though your eyes are looking right at it, they don't see it. So your job is to break consumers out of this state and get them to snap out of it in an awake state or an attention state. And we call that beta mode. So this is an interesting picture. If you were driving to work and you saw this in your rearview mirror, do you think that you would now pay attention to everything you were doing? Absolutely. I've had that experience before, and I know that your nose clears out and your heart rate goes up So definitely in an engaged mode. Now, how does that translate to marketing? Well, it means that the person will consciously notice your advertisements. They'll actively seek out information on products or services that you're selling, and they're open to ideas and suggestions about how to solve their problem, because you have made their brain now wake up and take notice. And they'll read or absorb as much information as necessary to make the best decision. And this is what I was talking about before. You don't need to worry about cutting back on content for people, because they will, if you did the job properly of interrupting and engaging them, they will absorb that information. So how does it work? Well, we have something in our brain called the reticular activator, where your brain is always subconsciously scanning the environment for anything that's either familiar or connected. And this includes recent beta mode things or old beta mode things. Anything that's threatening or dangerous, or maybe that's not consistent or incongruent. Oh, I went too far there. So when your brain, our brains are made to keep us safe. And so that's why we have that part of our brain called the reticular activator that's always looking out for us. If you're ever walking down the street and all of a sudden you just get this weird feeling like, oh, you know what? I think I should cross the street, because the people coming down the street, there's something that makes you feel like you should. That's your reticular activator saying, yeah, something's wrong here. Don't know what it is, but I'm gonna go the other way. So anything that snaps you out of that alpha mode to beta mode is based on activators. And so these are things that break the pattern. They're things like, a vehicle that you're looking at buying. I remember back, I think this must be maybe even, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, maybe even longer, when the first Chevy Avalanche came out. It was kind of a strange looking vehicle, but I liked it. And I thought, oh man, I need to get one of those. And I thought, I'm going to get a black one because I haven't seen one of those. Well, you know what? As soon as I made that decision and was going to go get one, I saw them everywhere. So it's interesting how your brain automatically does that. Even to this day, if I am driving down the street and I see another vehicle that's just like mine, instantly I notice it. But hundreds of vehicles have gone past me that are not even similar, and I didn't notice any of them. Maybe a baby crying in the night. Any of you who are moms, you probably know this. I've stayed in hotels with my wife before where she's like, what's that? And I'll be like, I have no idea. I didn't hear anything. But of course, when I really listen, I can hear a baby crying somewhere in a room next to us or something. So her reticular activator was set to that. Smell of a certain kind of perfume. If sometimes you can just smell perfume and you think, wow, that person must be here. You look for them, right? I remember before, walking in a store or shopping mall and I smell this perfume and I go, oh my God, my mother-in-law's here. And, I got to get out now. Just kidding. So it's amazing how smells can be so strong. Or maybe a song, you hear a song come on the radio and bam, you're right back to wherever the first time it was. I think about, if I was to hear some songs that I was, growing up with, it would take me back to, the riding in my buddy's Trans Am or something like that, right? So it's amazing how these things that are in your brain can interrupt you instantly. When you're advertising, however, activators must be based on hot buttons. And these are things that are very specifically related to what you're trying to sell. And if not, a false beta. The brain will automatically revert back to alpha mode and the prospect won't become engaged. And let me put it to you this way. If you're in a room, so let's say I'm standing in a room and I'm having a conversation with somebody over here. And all of a sudden I hear somebody go, Trent. I look directly at them because now I'm engaged. That activator is something that catches my attention and I look. But if that person's not looking at me, then my brain goes, oh, not talking about me, back to what I was doing. And so it's the same thing with hot button issues. If you're gonna interrupt someone, then you had better interrupt them with things that are relative to what you're going be trying to talk to them about. This is an example. This is a billboard that was up, I believe, in Calgary for about a month. And I bet most everybody saw this when they drove by, because it's an activator. It's got interrupt value, right? But then as you drive by, you're like, huh, don't know what it's about, right? So the activators were not based on hot buttons. And this was actually a boot ad. And I'm pretty sure it didn't do very well for them, because they took it down and we never saw this billboard again. So I would, if I was their advertiser and it had got them traction, I would have left it up. So I'm pretty sure that it didn't. So false betas are based on, typically anyway, cute, shocking, unusual stuff, celebrity, or sex appeal. And here's some examples. I don't know if you can read this, but this is Miss Piggy. This is a Lay's ad from, I believe this was Sports Illustrated somewhere back a few years back. And it says, what will the world's most beautiful women be wearing this year? Well, is it cute? Well, it might be. Is it celebrity? Oh yeah, sure, that's Miss Piggy. She's a celebrity. But here's the other thing that I think is probably a mistake. Do you want to be a woman that looks like what's happening with Miss Piggy right now? Probably not. And so you got to be careful what pictures you use as well. And again, without seeing this little picture down in the corner, you might not even understand what this is, right? And if people were zipping by it, which they typically are in a news feed, this would probably get missed. Power is nothing without control. Again, you know, sex appeal, unusual, shocking, somebody running on a wave, but it's a tire ad, okay? So if you hadn't seen, and if you didn't know what Pirelli was, you probably wouldn't have even known what this ad was all about. Here's another one, Perrier. And this ad, I believe, was one of the worst things that Perrier ever did, because the typical Perrier drinker would not relate to these people at all. And what they were trying to do was they were trying to expand their market. And I think what they did was they actually lost a lot of the existing market that they have. Is it shocking? Yes. Is it unusual? Yes. But did it work? I bet not, because they didn't use proper hot buttons for their target audience. So what are the important components of interrupt? Well, newspapers and news sites do a very good job of interrupt. Interrupt is usually headlines and pictures, and they put them in a way that the most important thing is the largest, and then it goes down from there. And think about it this way. Anybody who's ever read a newspaper, do you read everything in the newspaper? Probably not. Most people flip through the newspaper and they see the headlines and they stop on those headlines, or they'll see a picture that they relate to and they stop on that picture. And it's the same thing with news sites. You'll scroll until you see a picture or a headline that catches your eye, and then and only then will you read that article. And so that's something that the newspapers and news sites have known for years. So here's another fun thing that we did. This is an example of how you can put interrupt here. We ended up not running it this way. I think we did it the opposite, where this was the nice smile, or this was the bad smile, and this was a nice one. But you can see how this is shocking, unusual, but it's also 100% related to the product that they're selling. Here's another version of it. People look at this and they go, oh, that's gross. I would never respond to an ad like that. Do you have dentures that you have problems with? Probably not. Someone who has dentures and has had this experience would relate to this absolutely. And it's a hot button issue, so it's the product that they're selling. So once you've interrupted and engaged, then you need to educate. And so basically, interrupt is getting the attention. Engage is giving them the promise that now that you've got their attention, that it's a hot button related issue, this is something that might be able to solve their problem. And then educate is telling them about what it is that you have to offer that will solve their problem and educating them on it. So once you've given them the promise of the decision facilitating information, then you give it to them. Provide as much information as you have the time or space to give. So, if you're doing a 30-second radio ad or a 30-second video on TikTok, then yeah, you got a very short period of time. But if you've got a brochure or a website, you can provide a lot more information. Make it simple. Use what we call the writing guidelines, and if anybody wants them, just email me afterwards and I'll definitely get them for you. But use simple words. Don't use things like, encourage. Use the word urge. And you can see here, there's all kinds of stuff that I could go through with you if we had the time today. But just use plain talk. And I hear this all the time. Because most dentists are professionals, I shouldn't say it that way, all dentists are professionals, but your staff are as well, and you tend to speak in language that is different than what the general public speaks in, especially when you're talking about what you do. And so you're probably going to talk above what their level is. So it's important to try and consciously bring that down so that they understand it. So use short sentences. An average of 17 words, because 25 is difficult. And this is something to keep in mind with everything from blog posts to social media and pages on your website. If you're going to do anything that is print or direct mail, absolutely remember all of these things. Simple language, personal references. One of the best words you can use is you. Use live words. And I won't go through all of these, but these are kind of interesting. Evaluate stuff when you write it down. And if you can say, well, I would hope so, then don't bother putting it in there. Or who else can say that? Well, if every one of your competitors can say exactly the same thing, then you're probably using up ad space you don't need to. Or if you say, well, whoop-de-doo. Well, if it's no big deal, then why are you putting it in there? Or do you really believe that? Prove it. If you make a claim about something, you need to prove it right there, because everybody's going to go, well, I don't believe that. Or this one's always a tough one. What conclusion do you want me to draw? And sometimes your pictures will lead people to conclusions that you don't want them to. So be very, very careful about that. The cross-out write-in test. If you can put your competitors' contact information on your ads and it still makes sense and they would still, it would be true for them, then don't do that. Use the word free or complimentary effectively. Use features or use benefits versus features whenever you possibly can. And use emphasis tools. Use bold, underline, and italics, or all caps if you need to. Make sure that, but don't do that all the time. If I see posts a lot where everything is in all caps, and you're like, why are you yelling at me? So if anybody wants this document, just let me know. Answer these two simple questions. Why would a prospect favor your business over all of your competitors? And then list those answers and then quantify those reasons. You may not be able to use these answers, but they will be the foundation for the rest of the stuff that you do. What problems do people have when choosing a dentist in your area? Figure out what those are and then innovate your business if necessary to fix them, and then tell everybody that you have. And then write it out as though you were giving advice to a friend. So if you had somebody who was in a different city and they go, hey, I know you're in the dental industry and I'm actually looking for a new dentist, but I haven't got the foggiest idea what I should be asking or what I should ask about. Write it out as though you're giving an answer to that person. So once you've interrupted, engaged, and you've taken a chance or taken the time to educate them, then you need to give them an offer. And they should be risk-lowering offers, ways for people to take the next step without picking up the phone to call. Things like patient guides. Or, and this one's kind of an interesting one, 10 ways to save on your dental bills. You know what? They're all stuff that all of us knows, but you just remind them of it. Choosing a dentist checklist. This is kind of an old one that we did, but it was very effective because each of these 10 items were things that we knew that this client did better than everybody else in the area. Here's an anxiety checklist. Are you a candidate for sedation dentistry? These people are afraid. Why not give them a way to know for sure that they might be a candidate? Service cards, consultations. How to use risk-lowering offers. First, make sure your ads are congruent with your offers. So if you have an implant ad and an implant landing page, you need an implant-specific offer. Set up sales funnels to do this. There's lots of products out there that you can do that with. We've used all kinds of different ones, but things like ClickFunnels or Active Demand or Infusionsoft or all kinds of different ones. Oops. Well, my mouse is really working well today. There we go. Direct your online advertising to the funnels instead of directly to your website. Then you can be really targeted and you can speak directly to your prospect in their language. So here's, for example, the guide to orthodontics and Invisalign. So when they arrive here, very specific, this is exactly what they get. They don't have a lot of confusing information because when people are confused, they do nothing. And what you want to do is you want to take them by the hand and walk them through the process exactly as you want them to. Here's another one, 10 ways to save on your dental work. And then once you promise them that you're going to give them this information, then give it to them. As soon as they hit submit, they need to get all of that information. And then continue to feed them information about your services. And this is what we call a drip marketing campaign. And these can be specific to each of the campaigns, right? Promotional offers. These are things like special pricing, limited time offers, free giveaways, and anything in between. But be very careful because once you start discounting services, it is a quick trip to the bottom. So I would say, first off, it depends on what others in your area are doing. If you need to do it to compete, well, then by all means, figure out a way to do that. Value added is always the best because you never devalue your service then. So what that something would look like is, a free teeth whitening with every new patient exam and cleaning or something like that. Again, use it with caution. And then you can offer those things at the bottom of the information that you have given them. So if this is the 10 ways to save, you might be able to give away a free electric toothbrush or teeth whitening with new patient exam and cleaning, and give them a way to easily do that. So once you have gone through the interrupt, engage, educate, and offer, and figured out the strategy and how to say it well, then you need to say it often. And here's what I learned about marketing from growing up on a farm. This old water pump that you see here, it might look familiar to some of you, but they were kind of a crazy old thing. You had to pour a little bit of water in the top, and then you would pump the handle. And you'd pour a little more water, and you'd keep pumping and keep pouring and keep pumping until finally it would bring the water up from way down in the well. And as long as you kept pumping, water would come out. But as soon as you stop, then the water would go back down and you would have to reprime the pump again to get it going again. And it's kind of like marketing. It's once you start, it might take a little while to start getting results, and you might have to keep pumping and keep pumping. Don't make decisions on things just because the very first time you do them, they don't work. That doesn't mean that they don't work. It just means that you haven't given it enough time. People's brains work a little bit differently. They need to see things on a fairly consistent basis. They need to get that frequency so that they can make a decision. And if you only do it once or twice, you're not going to be the one that they choose. Because they're going to see your ad, they're going to think, oh yeah, that's interesting, and they're not ready to make a decision yet. And when it comes time for them to make a decision, your competitor happens to pop up, and guess who they choose? The other thing that I learned from farming is when you put seed in the ground, you don't go out and cultivate it up and till the soil after you've done that. Because what happens is those little plants are just starting to grow under the surface, and you don't know how much they're growing under the surface. They're not showing up. And if you get frustrated because they're not poking up yet, you can go and ruin all the stuff, the foundation that you've built. So don't be too quick to change things just based on what you think you're seeing. So what you need to do is create a tactical plan. The first thing I will tell you is do not listen to advice from ad sales reps. Most of them are on commission, and the more they sell you, the more they make. Determine your media by what we call the task process. Think, ask, survey, check. So you think first. Think about, would this be something that makes sense? And if it's just really out there, probably not something to do. Is it the type of publication that you would want to be seen in? What are the other advertisers like in there? Then ask people who are your patients. Do you ever read this? Do you remember the last piece of direct mail you got? Do you listen to this radio station? Do you use Facebook or Instagram? Whatever it is, ask. Then survey. Find other advertisers who are doing exactly what you're planning on doing that are not dentists, and phone them. Say, hey, you getting any traction out of whatever it is that you're doing, whether that's print or online. And then check. And really, this is testing. And so don't throw all your money at it right away. Test out. And I'm going to talk a bit, make sure you track everything. Once you've done this, then you format the strategic message that you have to fit that selected media, and then test. Track the results. You can do so with things like Google Analytics. It's free. If you don't use it, you should. You're missing out. And there's a lot of data that you can get from here. And so please make sure that you use it. Use unique URLs to track your traffic. Make sure, Google's actually got a campaign URL builder that helps you if you're going to do any online ads or anything. You can definitely do that. Or if you're doing some print, this client here this was not their website, but when they typed it in, it went to their website, and we could track that. So we knew how many people came to the website from that ad. Call tracking numbers. This is really important. Again, this is a way that you can do this and also record the calls. So I would implement this really early. Just put the number on your website so that you can track and hear all these calls. But you'll be able to tell, where things are coming from. We've actually implemented a system called Practice Call Tracker, where we have somebody listen to the live calls. And so you can tell how many total calls you got, how many of those were new patient calls, how many were existing patients, how many of the new patient calls did you book, et cetera, even down to who answered the calls and what percentage of them they're closing. Because if you're not closing a high percentage of new patient calls, then something's wrong and you need to fix it. Link your Google Ads to your analytics. So now let me try something here. It's going to be a little bit difficult because I'm doing this online, but I'm going to try a little test, and I'm going to show you a page in a minute that has a bunch of numbers on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 30 seconds to find the numbers on the sheet. So when you find it, just write it on a piece of paper if you have it, or even just point at it on the screen. And so I'm going to give you 30 seconds, find as many numbers as you can, starting with 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and so on. So let's get ready here. Let me just get my timer. And so I'm going to click through and start. Remember, start with 1, keep going up, see how many you can get. And we're halfway there. 10 seconds left. 5 seconds left. And stop. Okay, so I could ask how many people got, 10 or more. I'm sure that some of you guys got 10 or more. How about 15 or more? Yeah. Okay, I see a couple of you saying that. 20 or more. Nobody got that? Okay. So anybody get 18? 17? Okay, we got a 17. Okay, so 17, let's say that that's the best in 30 or in this 30 seconds. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a system. And the system is that we're going to divide it into quadrants. And the number 1 is going to be in the top left, number 2, top right, and so on. You just go clockwise around and around and around, and the next number will always be in the next quadrant. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to time you again. And we're going to stopwatch, and we're going to give you 30 seconds. And now that you know the system, let's see if we get any higher. Okay, sorry. Let me stop that. Okay, get ready, go. Okay, we're halfway there. I bet some of you already are past where you were last time. Five seconds left. And stop. Okay, did anybody get more than 20 this time? Yeah, okay, lots of people saying that. 25. Okay, we got some 25s. Anybody hit 30? No 30s? How about 29? Okay, we got a couple 29s. Excellent. I think the highest I've ever got on here is a 34. We did this in a live one before, and somebody got as high as 34 the second time. So you can see how having a system makes it so much easier. And just like this exercise, having a system is critical for your marketing. And so your system can include any or all of the following, but it should include most of them. Website, SEO. Now, I put website and SEO next to each other because if you build a website and you don't do SEO, I tell this story all the time. It's like building a restaurant in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Nobody knows your restaurant's there. There's no roads, there's no signs. Nobody's going to find you. You're just going to be where you're at, and you're not going to have any business. So if you're going to build a website, you definitely need to do SEO. I would also recommend some pay-per-click and online advertising because SEO takes a little while. So this is the way you'll get found quickly. Social media, local marketing and reviews, direct mail, print, radio and TV, receptionist training, internal marketing. Your existing patients should be your biggest source of new patients. If they're not, something's wrong. Either you're not doing a good job or you're not asking for it. So how will you go about marketing to your existing patients? Well, you start off with e-newsletters. Newsletters are pretty important. Let me just go back there. Because this is the way that you can communicate anything new that you have in your office. And it might not be new to you, but often it's new to your patients. I was talking to a dentist one time who said he met a patient in the mall, and they were talking, and she says, I feel really bad, I haven't been in, but she said, I went to this other dentist because he had this new thing called CEREC, and I thought that was really cool, so I went there. And this dentist is like, well, we have a CEREC machine. She goes, oh, I didn't know that. So you need to tell your patients about the things that you have. You know, if you've got a brand new iTero machine, let them know. Maybe they are one of those people who are so afraid of gagging when they get those goopy impressions. Let them know about it, because that might be the reason that they go to a different dentist. So very good to have a newsletter that goes out every month to your patients. Do promotions and contests. You know, give them a reason to engage with you. And it actually makes them feel like you want to give back to them. Referral thank yous. Anytime that you can thank people for referrals, you should do so. And if you can pop it in the mail, People don't get a lot of stuff by mail these days. So if you end up getting a card with maybe a Starbucks gift card or something like that in it, that means a whole lot, even if it's not worth a whole lot. In a lot of markets, you can't do this, but if you can, let people know what they can get if they refer to you. Put posters in your ops and waiting areas with all the different services that you want to promote. Because sometimes people will be sitting in the waiting area and they'll look up and see something and they go, oh, well, that's interesting. Maybe I should ask about teeth whitening or whatever it is, right? So it helps you sell things without you having to sell them. If you've got a TV in your office, don't have the local weather channel on or whatever it is that's current TV. Put on your own video with slides or video that sell your services. You know, this is a really good opportunity. You've got a captive audience sitting there in your office. Excuse me. So make sure you make use of it. Brochures. A lot of people don't bother with brochures, but you know what? If you have brochures, you can leave them in your waiting area, and people can pick them up and take them and help with the referrals. If they know somebody that might be going to refer or that needs a new dentist, they can take a brochure and hand it to them. This is an example. You know, don't skimp on it. This is a full 8.5 by 11 brochure that I believe was 8 pages. They had a great looking office that, why not really promote it, right? Events. Of course, after COVID all settles down, these are things that I would not have told you would be effective when I first started marketing dental offices, but they're highly effective. Open houses. You know, if you've got a local celebrity, like this is the Calgary Flames mascot, we had them in and had the head dentist there do some dental work, and we got pictures of it, right? Have open houses to have people come through your office. I did not think people would want to tour dental offices on a Saturday, but guess what? They do. We had over 1,200 people walk through that office that day. In fact, I think it was a little more than that. Kids' days. Have things like you know, where you have kids into maybe it's a theme day where you have kids in that would get their happy visit, but it's all dinosaurs or superheroes. We do something called Little Smiles that's kind of fun for all the kids. It's free, but you know what? People love to come in and have those activities. Lots of times moms with little kids are just looking for things that they can get them out to do. Have family days, pictures with Santa, but be creative. You know, don't give them the picture without having your logo on it. Signs. You know, introduce your patients to other services they might not be aware of. If you've got windows, you can put perforated vinyl signs in them, or your hallways or anything, right? Here's, you know, some perforated vinyl on the windows. We had one client that had very little walk-in traffic, and their signage didn't make it look like their office was very big. And when we covered all the windows in perforated vinyl, all of a sudden we had lots of walk-in traffic. People said that they'd gone by there often and never saw that they were there. So, you know, big space to be able to advertise. Your website. Your website's the hub of your marketing system, and it's critical. If you don't have a website, if you don't have a good website, people think that you're not even a legitimate business anymore. It should follow the results formula. You should have contact forms for all your offers on there. Make it really easy for people to request. And traffic doesn't mean anything if it doesn't convert. And so your website should be built to convert before anything. Also remember, content is king. Don't sacrifice content for graphic design. When Google comes to a website, Google does not see pictures. It only sees content. So if you've got a really fancy site with no content, your site's probably not going to rank very well. Link as much content text to other content on your website for SEO. Your staff or your team page is going to be a very highly visited page, so make sure you have your offers available on that page. If you don't have a staff or a team page, I know I see this all the time. There's, one page that's about us, and then there's maybe a group picture, and that's it. Here's what I know. If I was to take all of our clients and I put all of their web statistics together, I'll guarantee you that the number 2 visited page on any of our clients' websites is the team page. They want to see who you are. So please make sure you build that page out. Have other businesses linked to your site. If you've got other business owners in your office, tell them. I would love it if you're doing a post on something that we can do a guest post for you, and we'll link back to our site and do a reciprocal for them. It looks really good to have those links. Focus on conversions over traffic. Keep your offers very consistent, and don't focus on the services. Focus on service, because most people think that your dental office probably provides pretty much the same services. You get a filling, get a crown, whatever it is, you get a cleaning. They're probably thinking you're exactly the same as everybody else. But if you focus on the services, these are the things that make your office different than everybody else. That's when you're going to get conversions. SEO. So make sure that your site is set up correctly, and do regular audits. There's several tools out there. We use one called SEMrush, but make sure that things like your title tags are set up properly. It'll tell you if things are not done very well. Okay, this was a client of ours before we started working with them. Speed. Speed is becoming very, very important. And you can test the speed on your site really easily by just going to Google's Page Speed Insights. Put your website in there, and your mobile site should be scoring fairly high. If it's not scoring at least 60 or higher on a mobile device and 100 on desktop, you're not doing things right. So you need to make sure your site is very quick. Google is going to start ranking that even more now, with their newest algorithm update that's supposed to be coming out shortly. Mobile. Okay, so a lot of people will build their website. It looks beautiful on a desktop, but it doesn't look so good on a mobile device. I bet that most of you have more than 70% of your visitors coming from mobile devices these days, and that's only going to get more. So please make sure that you design your website to work very, very well on a mobile device first. And then after, you can build it for a desktop, but make sure it works on mobile. Check your local NAP. NAP stands for name, address, phone number. Make sure that all of these directories have the proper name, address, phone number that you have on your website. It should match with your Google My Business page, your Facebook page, etc. Okay, you can see here, this clinic here used to be under a different name, same address, but they've actually even a little bit different address, but the phone number was the same, so it thinks it's the same. You need to get these cleaned up. There are services that do this. We use something called Bright Local, and that is included with most of our packages. Content. Make sure you add content and change it frequently, or add it frequently. That's what a blog is really good for. Backlinks, also very, very important. Make sure that you don't have too many toxic links. Again, SEMrush is a good tool to use to monitor your backlinks. Backlinks are a vote of confidence from other websites. So it's sort of like somebody giving you the thumbs up, right? Google comes along and it sees a link from another website to yours. It just thinks that site thinks your site is good, otherwise they wouldn't have linked to you. So it is a vote of confidence for you. Here's some good tools for you. GTmetrix, another really good tool for testing your site speed. This will tell you exactly why it's slow and what things are making it slow. TinyPNG, if you need to reduce the size of images so they don't load so slowly. SEMrush, I talked to you about that. Page Speed Insights. Here's another one, Test My Site, I think with Google. That also will help you to make sure that your site is being viewed properly by Google. What kind of backlinks should you get? Video backlinks, audio backlinks, social bookmarking. This is where you have people in your organization link back to your website from other posts, online classifieds, social media post backlinks. And all of those things are important because it's different types of posts always linking back, right? It's not always just exactly the same things all the time. How many backlinks do you need? That really depends on how many backlinks your competitors have. So it's important to know that information. Your blog. Your blog is the current content that search engines like to see on your site. So it's the stuff that when Google shows up at your website, it says, this is new. Please make sure you host it on the same server and domain as your website. I still see people going to WordPress.com or Blogspot. So the URL should look like this if you're going to host it at all. Update it regularly. Use a team approach. So just to give you an example, 8 people posting once every 2 weeks means your blog has a new post every week. And that doesn't seem like that big a deal, 8 people posting once every 2 months. So that means they're not going to have to post very often. Now, do you let them post? No, probably not. Let them supply you with a post, and then you can put it up after you've edited it. Surprisingly enough, people actually want to contribute. You may have some hygienists who are really interested in educating their patients about what they need to know. So let them do so. It'll be great content, and you can post it on social media and everything. You can create it all in advance and then set your blog post to post it automatically. So you can set your entire blog to have regular content for the whole year if you want to. Kind of an important thing to do, and it really reduces the work for everybody. And then make sure, of course, you link back to your website from all the content. Reviews. Depends on what area you're in, but Google and Facebook are definitely the place you want to get reviews. Yelp, in some areas it's important, some areas it isn't. So, but definitely, if get a few on Yelp for sure. Here's the biggest problem why people don't get them. People do not ask for them. And here's why you need to ask. Because I know there's all kinds of automated systems out there that send out, asking for reviews. Here's the problem. And you might be in the same situation as me. I get them all the time. I go get my hair cut, I get a request for a review. I, talk to somebody online about my phone system, and I get another request for a review. I ignore them because I'm busy. I don't really want to spend my time doing that. But if the person says to me, you know what, did you have a good experience here today? And I say, yes. They go, oh, it really helps us out if you give us a review on Google or Facebook. Would you be able to do that? Oh, yeah, sure. Now I've told them that I would. And if I get that email, now I feel guilty. So please make sure you ask. Send reminders, because now that you've asked them, now you need to remind them, because as soon as people get out the door, they get into their car and off they go to do whatever else it is that they were going to do, and they forget. So if you don't remind them, they probably won't give you. Reply to all reviews. Okay, very, very important. First off, it shows Google that you're paying attention, and it shows interaction with those reviews, and people really appreciate it. Here's the other thing it does, is if somebody takes the time to go give you a review and you reply to them with a very positive comment thanking them, how do you think that makes them feel? It just increases your equity in their mind. If you don't have a fully automated system, something you can do, and we set this up for a lot of our clients, is we have a page on the site that when they send an email out asking for a review, it goes to this page and asks them, were you completely satisfied with the service you received today? Yes or no. If they click yes, they go to a page that looks like this, and it makes it really easy for them to give a review. If they say no, it goes to a page that looks like this, and now they can let you know what you could have done better. And this keeps this negative comment out of social media, and it gives you feedback so that you can be better. So social media, what should you do here? Well, there's all kinds of options. Here's one of the things that I'm going to tell you is it doesn't matter which one you do. If you do them all bad, then there's no point in doing it, right? And it really depends on where you want to start. Don't try and do everything at once, because if you do, you're probably going to do most of it wrong. YouTube's pretty important. So if you can produce videos, YouTube's owned by Google, so it's really the second largest search engine in the world. So make sure you get some content on there. Facebook and Instagram, probably pretty important. LinkedIn, not necessarily as important for your dental office. TikTok is becoming more important. Depends on how creative you feel, but absolutely a place that you can gain some traction if you're feeling creative and you can put some video content up there. Again, the best thing to do is just to pick a couple of platforms and make sure you do them well. You can use services like Hootsuite or Later to post in multiple places at once. Just make sure it actually is doing that, because sometimes there's little glitches in there and you go back to your Instagram account and you go, oh, well, I didn't realize it was not posting properly. Here's one of the most important things that I can tell you. Keep it social. This is a communication between you and your community, your patients. And if it's not social, then it's not going to work. Generic posts all the time won't cut it. That doesn't mean you can't have a few generic posts. That's fine. But what you do when you have generic post after generic post, it doesn't matter how often you do it. You're going to train your followers just to ignore your content. So please don't do that. I see it all the time. And people will hire us and expect us to do everything. And we can post every day if you want to post. But that's not going to be effective, because people are just going to look at it and go, oh, well, yeah, that's not really something that has come, that's not content that's come from my dentist. So watch the data, be consistent, post as often as you can, post the same things more than once sometimes. I'll give you an idea why. Facebook's algorithm right now is that if you post on your Facebook page, probably less than 1.2% of your followers are going to even see that post. Why is that? Well, there's a number of reasons, but one of them is definitely that your followers aren't on all the time. So maybe they're the type of person that comes on first thing in the morning, they check their feed and they scroll through it, and then they don't check it again until after work or maybe in the evening when they're sitting around. And if you post it at noon, by the time they get back to it, that thing's pushed so far down in their feed that they're probably never ever going to see it. So if you post it again, they might see it. And if you post it again and somebody sees it twice, they're not going to think anything of it. They're just going to go, oh, I think I saw this one before. So don't worry about posting more than once. I would highly recommend it. Time it right. And again, this depends on your fans. So try different times and see which gets the best engagement. And you can get that from your Facebook Insights. So you can see here, this post here about their hygienist, Heather, did something for charity, and boom, that got way more interaction than some of the other ones. So kind of important to watch that. Use eye-catching images, alternate photos and videos with texts. In fact, I would almost tell you don't use just straight text posts anymore. Keep your text short, post between 100 and 150 characters, see 60% more likes than comments and shares than longer posts. Be relevant. So your content should let your audience know that you know who they are, instead of just pushing stuff towards them. Use your authentic voice. People are your fans and friends because they like what you do. So you should be your voice on social media. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Be social, right? It should be true to your brand. So try not be too generic. And it doesn't have to be always about dentistry. It could be about all kinds of things, right? Here's something that one of our clients did is they would go to a local business and they would give them t-shirts and swag, and then tag them on social media with their pictures. I think they called it mugging. Patient of the day, take pictures of your patients. You should all have in your new patient forms a release form that you can use any pictures and photos of your patients. Pretty important to do. Include a call to action as well. Make sure that you ask your fans to share, like, or comment, because if you do, they're more likely to do so. They're just scrolling through, they're being entertained, and then all of a sudden they see you ask them to do something. Oh, okay, I'll do it. Have a sense of urgency in some things. Up to the minute tips and tricks. Dispel myths. This is actually pretty important right now during COVID because there's so much misinformation out there. So make sure that you get that information out that is correct, so that you can help avoid confusion in your patients. Offer value. And this is probably the biggest underlying thing. Before you share anything on Facebook or on Instagram or any other social media, ask yourself if you think your fans will find the value in the content. If they don't, if you don't find value in it, they won't. So don't share it. Be entertaining. There's all kinds of things you can do. If your followers like funny memes or respond well to the video, take note of that. Watch what happens. Here's an example. And you guys have probably all seen this, but something that's funny. And if you get engagement with this, absolutely, keep using that kind of thing. Make a list. People love posts that are the top 10 ways or 12 can't miss tips. And again, they don't all have to be related to dentistry. Be seasonable. Change your profile image or cover photo to something seasonal. Here's one, that anybody in Northern Ontario will understand this 100%. It shows people that you know who they are and helps them relate to you. Here's another one. They did a whitening for charity. So they basically went to the charities and said, anybody who comes from your charity this month, you're our chosen charity, and gets teeth whitening, we will donate 100% of the cost of the whitening to your office. What do you think they do? They'll send an email out to their list saying, hey, anybody who wants teeth whitening, go to this dental office this month. This is something that probably isn't happening now in most places, but Brush to Win program, where you can go into schools and do some contests. Again, just an opportunity to take pictures. Elf on the Shelf, many of you probably do this around Christmas time. Little Smiles program or Child and Toddler Day. People love to see kids having a good time at their office. Okay, just getting short on time here. So let's transition into internet marketing. First thing I want to do is explain the difference in different platforms. The difference between Google and Bing and Facebook and Instagram, for example. So with Google and Bing, which are both search engines, advertising there starts off with somebody doing a search for whatever service it is. Maybe it's Invisalign and they come to your site through your Google ad. Their brain is actively looking for the service that they're searching for. So your ads need to be congruent with that. So you need to think about, if somebody searches for this search term, are they going to show, like, what is their brain thinking about when they go to look at that ad? And same with Bing. Where Facebook and Instagram are a little bit different, because people are not searching for things. They're scrolling through their news feed. They're looking at things that their friends have posted and things that the companies that they're following have posted. And they're not actively searching for whatever it is you're selling. So what you need to do is you need to interrupt them and stop that scroll. And remember, I talked about the results formula. Starts off with interrupt. Very, very important in social media. You need to stop the scroll so those people don't continue on. You want them to stop and look at your stuff. Their thinking is different. They're not as likely to come to your website from that click and convert, whereas Google is, because they're actively looking. So two completely different strategies have to be involved here. Google and Bing ads are only pay per click. So they're the ones that show up at the top here, and you pay nothing unless somebody clicks on it. Facebook and Instagram are pay per click or pay per impression, and you can set it up either way. I actually like pay per click best, because you know at least that that person has come to your website or to your landing page. Online's a great place to test messaging. You can put a lot of your messages on here, and you can see which ads work the best. And then based on that, you can even use those in other places like print and direct mail, things like that. Monitor it closely. Set it and forget it. It'll cost you a lot more money because things change. You will actually see Google and Bing start to give you recommendations on things that you can do to improve your account. There's going to be things coming in there where you might have a lot of searches for dental jobs. Well, if you're looking for employees, maybe that's a good thing, but likely that's not what you're going after when you had the word dental in your search keys or your keywords. So please make sure that you monitor it, because otherwise you're going to pay for clicks that you will never have convert because they're actually looking for something else. The other thing I'll tell you is watch how much you're paying for those clicks. In some markets, a click can cost $20, $25. And that uses up your budget pretty quick, especially if you have a low budget. You might not show up for an entire day just because of one click early in the morning. So you might want to look at what those clicks are costing you and take those keywords out for now. Or try and go after longer search keywords, because the people who type in longer search terms, they call them long tail searches, are more likely to convert because they're being very specific. And if you can show up for those, you'll probably get those people. Again, unique landing pages, use sales funnels. Most people, when they come to your website the first time, don't convert. So please make sure that you do something to be able to capture them. Use ad extensions to take up as much space as possible. If you look at these 4 ads, they're very different. The top one takes up a lot of space. You can actually take up more space than that with your ads. And the bottom one here hardly has anything. These guys are wasting money on their ads. Stay away from display ads except for remarketing if you can. And actually, Google is not allowing remarketing for dentists. So if you can get away with it, great. But they're all medical services are not allowed to do remarketing right now. Excuse me. The other thing that I will suggest is that make sure that it's set up to only show up in the areas that you can likely get patients from. I see it all the time where I'll do a search for dentists and I'll get dentists coming up with ads that should not be showing up in my area because they're nowhere near me. And I could click on them, and some people do, and that will cost them money, and there's no way that I'll ever convert. For Facebook and Instagram, try different images, videos, headlines, calls to action, etc. Here's one where we had 3 different pictures, and we thought that at first the one with the picture of the laser was absolutely doing the best, but the one with the picture of the smiling man was actually not getting as many people going to the website, but it was costing less. So the traffic from this was actually cheaper. So we actually kept all 3 ads up because they were doing different things. We also learned that having a learn more button works better than book now. People off of these ads are not ready to book. They just want to find out more about you. So having learn more is a lower risk offer. This will give you an idea of which ads did the best, but those numbers are not telling the whole story. Just because you got more visitors doesn't mean that these visitors weren't better visitors. So you need to take a look more at what kind of conversions you're getting from it. Remarketing, retargeting used to be a really big deal on Google, but they're not allowing it anymore, at least in any of the markets we're working in. You need about 1,000 site visitors first, but basically what it does, it allows you to show up in places like this. And this is kind of interesting. This is my daughter's website, and we were looking at going to Vancouver when I took this screenshot, and I got ads for the Vancouver Aquarium because they thought maybe I was a tourist that was going there. So one of the things you can do on Facebook and Instagram is you can use traffic campaigns to get some good traffic first and then retarget those people for conversions rather than going after the conversions on the very first shot. So something to take into account. Now, let's talk a little bit about traditional marketing, excuse me, and then we'll wrap it up. Because a lot of people think traditional type marketing is dead, like direct mail, but it's not. These are all mediums that have worked for years and they still continue to work. The one thing that I will tell you is with direct mail, today people are getting less mail in their mailbox than they ever did. So when they go to the mailbox and they get their mail, you may be the only thing that they see in there. The nice thing about postcards, for example, is even if they want to throw your mail out, they still have to read it. So you are definitely going to get some visibility there. And if that person happens to be the person who is looking for a new dentist or has an issue with their dentures and they're looking for some way of solving that problem or whatever it is, you're going to at least have the opportunity to market a little bit to them. Don't just send once. If you do a direct mail campaign and only mail it once, you're making a big mistake and wasting your money. I would say at minimum 3 times and probably no more than 3 to 4 weeks between sends. It will definitely improve your results. We have clients, and because we measure all of the results that come from these, we have clients that get phone calls from direct mail from postcards that they haven't sent out for over a year. But people will take those postcards, put them away, and then they will pick that postcard up when they're ready to make a decision, and they'll make that phone call. Print. Print is also really good. A lot of things like these local newsletters, people read them as much as you think that they might not. They do. A lot of people will go through them to get local news and find out things about their area and local things that are going on. So again, use the task process. Find out if anybody actually reads them. Sometimes if they're non-subscription type, less people will read them. Newspaper advertising can be okay. The trouble with most newspaper ads is it's very, very expensive, and it's just a crapshoot if you're not on one of the most prominent pages that somebody even opens the newspaper to that location. Inserts work. Flyers can work as well. Radio. A lot of people think, well, radio's probably dead. No, it's not. We get good results from radio. Radio is an easy way to test messages. You can get your message out there fairly easily, fairly cheaply, and people hear it fairly often as well. You can get a frequency of 3, which you would take months to get with direct mail, in just a couple of weeks. And so you can test those messages that way. Most stations can give you pretty exact demographics of who their listenership is. So if you're going after, people who are a little bit older, maybe female, you can find a station that's very specific to that target audience. TV ads, very difficult to advertise here unless you're advertising around maybe some local news channels or news stations, because people will tune in and watch most of those. But there's so many channels now, it's really a crapshoot on what you're going to get. We have found fairly effective, though, if you do things like advertising on the channel guide for local cable, seniors type marketing works really well for that. Implant retained dentures, things like that will work good there. So I know that was a lot, and I tried to stuff it all into, it looks like about an hour and a half now. But just a reminder of how your marketing should work as a system. You should have both a strategic and a tactical plan. And here kind of how it kind of breaks down. The strategic part of it is having something good to say and saying it well. And again, if you don't have something good to say, innovate, then use the results formula to say it well, and then set up a tactical plan, which is really the media and communication mix. It's the frequency, it's the say it often. And all of that, you should track the ROI. You should know that if you spent $1,000 on some sort of an ad campaign, whether it's online or offline, exactly how many patients you got out of that. Now, you're never going to know exactly, I guess, but you're going to be within a couple of patients, right? You should know that if you spent $1,000, that you got 10 patients for that, and that is a $10,000 return on that investment. And if you don't do that, you're going to be spending money on things that aren't working, and should be spending more money on things that are, but you really don't know which is which. So a lot of times I go through this presentation and people ask me, okay, so I don't really think I can do all of this. So what do I need to know about when I'm looking at hiring a dental marketing company? Well, the first one is hire somebody who uses a complete system, who can do everything for you, because I see it so often that there's all these little bits and pieces, but they don't work together. And what you end up with then is a system that's not really a system. It's just a bunch of parts that don't work together. It's not congruent. It's not a good feeling for your prospects, and you'll have way less conversions because of it. It should be strategy based, not tactics based. You hear a lot of people say, oh yeah, we do Facebook ads. That's what we do. Well, okay, but what's your strategy? Tactics is great, but how do you make that work? Should have a fixed fee monthly instead of paying per hour or paying per project, because you'll spend less money and you'll get more services. Treatment specific strategies. General strategies for dentistry doesn't work nearly as good as being very treatment specific. All the materials that they have should be fully customizable. So you should be able to easily get a lot of material very, very quickly if they've been doing anything in the industry at all. They should provide professional copywriting. You need to be providing copywriting that reflects you. A lot of people get all of their copywriting done overseas, and that's okay as long as you have somebody who can take that and proofread it and make sure that it is done in proper English. Professional graphic design. You want it to represent you very, very well. So you want that design to be as good as possible. And you need to have implementation support, because it's one thing to create all of this stuff, but if you have to implement it, here's what's going to happen. It's not going to happen. We've seen it again and again where things have, we've taken on clients where they've got a stack of direct mail postcards in the back because somebody convinced them that direct mail was a good idea, yet they had to implement it. So make sure that it comes with implementation support. That doesn't mean they have to do everything for you, but they need to be able to help you with just about everything, right? Maybe you're having email issues. Well, if you don't have a marketing company that can help you with those email issues, then what ends up happening is you've got a marketing program that's on hold until you can find an IT person to help you with that. Maybe you're having somebody in your office do social media. Well, you need to have somebody that can actually give them a little bit of advice anyway, rather than just floundering around on it, or help you with the full implementation, whatever it is. So here's what I want to tell you is, because you're on this webinar and you're watching this now, I will give you a free complete website audit, a complete SEO audit, and I will personally do a 1-hour consultation with you. Because I know that many of you out there are confused with what you should be doing and how to do it. And just having a chance to chat with you and talk about your situation, I can clarify a lot of things and help you understand maybe the direction that you should go. That's the other thing that you need to do is find somebody who can translate everything for you, because we've taken on clients in the past where they're like, okay, I get all these reports, but I have no idea what they mean. Can you read them for me? And so that's one of the things that we provide for all of our clients. We'll meet with you once a month and make sure that you do understand what's going on with all the data from your website, your social media, your Google ads, your Facebook ads, your Instagram ads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Help you understand what's going on, because if you don't understand that, then you can't make good decisions. So that's part of what we want to make sure that we provide. The other thing, if you're going through this webinar, I also want to offer you 50% off of our setup fee, which is up to an $1,800 value, depending on which program that you do. So if you do the consultation with us and you decide that you want to move forward, you just tell us, hey, I was on this webinar, and we'll give you 50% off of that fee. So I would like to open it up for questions, we'll take some time to answer some things that you have here if anybody has any questions. And if not, we're at an hour and a half here, so I don't want to take anybody too much longer. Any questions at all? Oh, where can you get more information? Go to dentalgrowthstrategies.com. So dentalgrowthstrategies.com, and you can see all of our packages and information there. And that should answer most of your questions. You can also call us at 403-879-1696, and we can help you out then. Anything else? Okay, I don't see anybody else having anything come in. So thank you all for spending the time, and we hope you have a great day and hope to talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.